My definition of success is embracing like the hustle and grind for whatever it is your goal is. Welcome to the Dr. Mudgil podcast. I am super excited to have my very close friend, Justin Jefferson here, who I've known for close to 7 years almost at this point. And I met Justin when I first moved out to Long Island when I was training at the Equinox gym in Roslyn in Long Island. We'd moved from the city to Long Island and I was looking for a trainer. And I hooked up with Rasan Robinson. And I think Justin had just started working at the Equinox either around around the same time.
Yeah,
I would say.
June of 2012 was when I started.
Okay, yeah. So literally, I joined in August of 2012. So you were pretty fresh there.
It was brand new, man.
And Justin is someone who I really admire. He's just fitness-wise a total beast, and just the transformation that he's personally made. I mean, he was very fit to begin with. But he'll tell you his story. He's got a great fitness story. But when I met him, he was very fit. But he's incredibly fit now, and his knowledge about fitness and nutrition. I mean, it's pretty much unparalleled. The amount of education and work he's put in to his craft, and learning about all the things that he does. It's really kind of staggering, actually, and it's quite inspiring for me to kind of witness this journey that Justin has taken. And you should all really do yourself a favor and follow him on Instagram. It's Mr_JFit. That's at MR_JAYFIT, because he does some like mesmerizing physical feats that will literally blow your mind away. I mean, like hanging sideways off poles, jumping off cars, I don't know, 360 push-ups. It's just insane. The stuff is really incredibly, it just makes you feel like you're so out of shape and every time I watch this stuff. But he's a beast. So welcome, Justin. It's so great to have you here, man.
Wow, man. After that introduction, man, I don't know what to say, but thank you, man. I'm honored, super honored to be here. Just as first and foremost as a great friend, a good friend of yours, a great friend, knowing you for the past 7 years, seeing your transformation and your journey that you've gone through, and it's really been incredible to see. So I commend you. I tip my hat to you. And he said a lot of great and humbling things about me. I'm truly humble, but don't be fooled. This guy himself is a beast. He's made such an amazing transformation, and it's incredible to see just working with this guy and training him and seeing him progress, and not just physically, but mentally. His mindset, his focus is kind of unmatched, man. I mean, it's hard to come across people who have such a focus and a mindset to push through and to go after what they want and not just talk about it, So as a fan of the podcast, as a fan of yours, I'm honored to be here today. Thank you so much.
Thanks, my man. That means a lot.
For having me, man.
Hey, man. So a mutual friend of ours. So not only is Justin a great friend, he's actually trained me quite a bit over the years as well. It's actually kind of like an inside joke between my trainer and I. Like, Justin is this like incredibly jacked, imposing figure with like a 28 pack and pecs that are always like bulging out of whatever shirt he's wearing. But man, I have a joke that Justin is my backup trainer, even though he's a friggin' animal when you look at him. But we have a mutual. So I have trained with Justin quite a bit over the years, and we have a mutual friend who's a listener of the podcast, a very astute guy. Jason Hembre, who's a very successful entrepreneur and a fitness fanatic. And listening to the first few podcasts, he said to me, he's like, there's sort of this unifying theme that your podcasts have. You're basically talking about success, but it's different versions of success. So it's like success, with my mom's case, as a parent and a physician, success as a lifetime New York City bartender, success as a filmmaker, success as a doctor. I mean, all different versions of success. And he's like, you should really consider starting your podcast by asking whoever your guest is what success means to them. So I'm going to start with that. That's the only thing I actually asked you to think about when we set this up. So just share with us, man, as a guy who's incredibly successful, what you define success as.
Wow. Well, first off, thanks a lot. That means a lot coming from you for sure, man. For me, success, I mean, when you look at like the phrase of what is success, right? Obviously you have society's view of success, which is kind of like, oh, this person has accomplished this much over the years, or they've got to this tax bracket, or they've, even if it's an athlete, they've won this many rings, right? That's success. And then you have, your personal success of like, the things that you've wanted to go after, things that you wanted to accomplish, and you've achieved it, and it's kind of like, okay, now I'm successful, so my version of success, to me, my definition would be a combination of those things, yes, I do have certain business goals that I've set out and things like that. I have personal goals that I've had for a long time, things that I've wanted to achieve. So obviously accomplishing those things to me would define success, but also outside of that, like just kind of peace of mind knowing that I've done everything that I could do, to pursue that goal. So obviously you want to achieve every goal you set out, right? But even if I haven't gotten there yet, I can have peace of mind knowing like, okay, I'm doing everything under my power to achieve that goal. To me, that's kind of a form of success in a sense. Like you can be successful while you're on the road to a different level of success, So just looking at it from that standpoint, like, is if you're just taking it and measuring it by like, oh, well, I did this by this date, that's successful. Yes, you can do it that way. But again, to me, it's kind of like knowing I'm doing everything that I possibly can to do. And one of my primary goals in the fitness industry is to make a positive impact on people, So having a person come in and tell you, since I've been training with you, my life has changed in this way, for the better. And I have a client that I've been training for the past 5 years, and he's told me several times, like, listen, you've changed my life completely. I've gotten so much healthier. This is a person who's lost, close to 50 pounds, over the years, has gotten themselves into tremendous shape, due to his work ethic and his commitment. But having him tell me that I was a part of that and that I've helped him over the past 5 years just from training him 3 times a week, it makes me feel great. That's success to me, as well. So it's kind of like my definition of success is a little loaded because it's broken up into different components depending on how you look at it. But for me, it's knowing I'm doing everything under my power to achieve my goals and to help people. That's why I got into this industry.
Hey man, well, you're doing a great job at it.
I appreciate it.
It's kind of very similar to sort of my definition of success. It's sort of, like I define success as embracing the hustle and grind to achieve whatever it is you're setting out to achieve, right? Because it's the process that it's all about. So if you love the process, like when I was a skinny fat and worked my way into being, like a junior beast.
You can call yourself a beast now, man. You graduated a little while ago.
But, just loving the grind of it, like getting up at 5 a.m. to work out, that's success to me when you're putting in that effort to, really kind of, grind it out, So what I also like to do is kind of take it back. I know, you grew up in Long Island. I always had the pleasure of meeting your family when you opened up your studio, the JFit Studio, which is a great fitness facility here in Long Island. And, meeting your family, I could just see, I mean, they're awesome. And they were like, like I could see you have a wonderful background, wonderful family. But what I did notice was your family's like obsessed with sports. It's like this kid was like the fastest kid in Amityville, and like and everything was like kind of like one upping, like who was the greatest athlete, who was the strongest. Your dad was joking around, like your brother is like this tremendous guy who's a professional bodyguard, and your dad was like joking around saying, "Oh, I'm taking my karate classes. I'm going to come for you." It's just I could see that there's a competitive environment. Like you grew up in that, like So just talk to us a little bit about that. Like when did you? Obviously, you're very gifted athletically. Did you excel at sports from like Little League or junior football or whatever it was, like what, because I know you played college football, just kind of walk us through that and maybe how your family influenced that, because I think that very much informs who you are now and what makes you tick.
Yeah, man, for sure. I mean, I grew up in a household as the youngest child, and I have 3 other siblings. I have 2 brothers and a sister, and just growing up in my household, we were always into sports. I mean, I can remember from a young age, we have like pictures and video from when I'm 3 years old. I'm all in the backyard playing. My dad is out there with us. He would come home from work, after working all day, and we'd be in the backyard playing sports, from when I was little, and even when I was a baby and my siblings were younger, and like that was kind of the way it was, just playing football in my backyard, basketball. He literally put a basketball court up in the backyard. He painted lines for like a football field back there. We had a baseball field. Like most of the neighborhood would come over and play sports. So like that's kind of the environment I came up with. Came up with in my family. It was kind of like coming up in my household. It was it was church, there was your education, and there was sports. Like that was kind of 3 pillars that we had. And obviously like with the sports, just that competitive nature that it built, and I would constantly be playing sports with my older brothers and their friends. So, and my brother that's directly older than me is about 3 to 3.5 years older than me, and my other brother's 2 years older than him. So pretty much everybody would always have an advantage because of age, because of size. So whether we're playing football, whether it's touch, sometimes tackle football, believe it or not, without pads in the yard, and playing basketball and baseball, when you're really young, sometimes you're kind of like, oh, this is kind of crappy. I'm losing, or I'm getting the crap kicked out of me. But as you get older, not only does it build, mental toughness and character, but like it also kind of gives you an advantage over the kids your age. So by the time, I started playing, I played Little League Baseball when I was 5. I remember I played third base, and I could actually throw the ball from third base to first base like pretty well, and I ended up playing third base and did pretty well in baseball coming up. I would play on the travel all-star teams until I stopped playing baseball when I was about 12, which I kind of kept playing, kind of wish now. But I started playing organized football when I was 9, youth league football. And by age 10, I played with the 11 and 12-year-olds, so I was kind of a level ahead with that.
So you were on that team with 11 and 12?
Yeah. I was 11. So it was crazy because like I had a late birthday. So my birthday is the end of November 29th. And I was kind of like in that weird window, So like all the kids I graduated with were, for the most part, mostly older than me, So that weird window. And when it came to sports, that same thing would happen, at the same time. So with football, I played with the 11 and 12-year-olds, and I was 10. I ended up starting running back on that team. I remember that. And backtracking to baseball, when I was 7, they had this thing called the pull-up list. So I would play with the 8-year-olds of like a team was short or something, whatever was going on. I remember playing with the 8-year-olds half the season when I was 7, because they would take kids, I guess, if they felt were elite. When I was in 7th grade, I played on the 8th grade team. It was called like the A team, B team. I was with the 8th grade team. Mind you, in 7th grade, I was 11. So a lot of the kids were older than me. And by 9th grade, I played 1 year JV, 9th grade, but I practiced with varsity half the year. And by 10th grade, I was a starter on varsity. So, and I say that to say like, I was constantly playing with, older people that were older and better than me when I was coming up. And it built not just character, but a competitive nature. And it made me better. Like that's why it's important to challenge yourself, and that's why I hang around people, who I find are smarter than me. Like it makes you better, it makes you wanna do more. So that was kind of the environment, that I came up with, very competitive, and not just sports, whatever we were doing, man. As you saw when you came by the studio, like it's still like that, Thanksgiving, Christmas, like up until a few years ago, we would play football on Thanksgiving Day, like relatives, up until my early 20s, like we would go do that, like cousins, and get together, and it was a fun time. So like that was actually big for my development and my mindset, just coming up that way.
So knowing you now, just your work ethic, and even like in your personal workouts, they're grueling. I mean, like you really like push yourself to like this extreme level. I mean, you push me to an extreme level too. But like just when you post your own workouts, I mean, they're incredibly grueling, which is very hard. It's very difficult it's very easy when you're working out by yourself to say, you know what? Yeah, that's good enough. Like I did like 10 reps, but it's those next 5 reps that are the hardest to do. Like for me, I benefit from someone screaming in my ear, like, come on, you can do it. Don't give up. But you do that intrinsically, like that's part of your nature. What were you like that then? Like, did you also out-train the other kids at that time, or were you just so gifted naturally that you never needed to?
Thankfully, I did have natural gifts, but when I was young, before there was training, it was just playing. And typically, like after I did homework, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to go outside and play sports. It's a little different now, I know. And we had video games, don't get me wrong, but like we spent so much time outside. I just wanted to play sports. Play the things that I loved. I wanted to play football, basketball, baseball. I wanted to do all these things just constantly. And as far as like it being work, I didn't look at it as like, oh, I'm working out to get better at football, basketball, or baseball. I enjoyed it, so I was able to embrace it and enjoy it. So for me, at a very, very young age, like, I was having fun. When it was time to work out, I started working out when I was 14, 13 going into 14. And my older brother, the one that's a bodyguard now, he's the one who really, really got me into it. He got a set of weights one year for Christmas, and he was, I think, a senior in high school. He got this weight set, and I was probably in 7th grade. And I would see, and he was a college football at the time. And I remember over the Christmas break, him and two of his teammates, these big guys, came over to lift. These big football players, and they're lifting, and and I'm just watching them peeking through the door. And I'm like, okay, this is cool. Like, I like that. I wanted to lift weights. I wanted to get strong. Like, I said, I was kind of like my first introduction to seeing someone really, really, lift and do all of these things. And I was 13. Remember, there's no YouTube at this point. So, like, all of this stuff, it's a lot different. And I must have been 11 or 12 at that point. By the time I was 13, I started to lift on my own because he started to teach me different movement patterns. And by 14, I joined the weightlifting club at school. At the high school, and I loved it. I would go to the weight room to the point where I have friends that I grew up with in high school that are on my football team that would call me Muscle Neck. Like, that was the nickname that these guys gave me. So we would get a good laugh at that. But I was constantly, in the weight room, constantly working out. I enjoyed it, before I realized, and I didn't think about being a fitness professional or anything like that. I loved fitness. I loved exercise. I loved training. And I loved the fact that, like, even though when I worked out, would burn, your muscles will burn, you're fatiguing out, you get stronger. Like, you're getting a reward out of it, and you keep doing it. Like, I've constantly enjoyed that. So just coming up that way kind of set the table for now where, as I'm, lifting and training myself, it's like, one of my favorite quotes is like, if you want to achieve something other people haven't, you got to do what they won't do.
Right.
So I love that. Not only do I love training, I love to kind of separate myself and be different. Like, I don't ever think that I'm better than anyone in any way, but I like to think that I'm not. I don't want to be average. Does that make sense?
Totally.
Because everybody brings something different to the table, and it's like, why would you want to be the norm? Why would you want to be average? Why would you want to be like just like anyone else if you can be, the best version of you? If you can help, if you can do something, and someone else decides to go to the gym because of you, right? Because of like. They saw a post, like you've experienced that. Sure. Someone will see you working out and they decided to get a gym membership or even if they're going to go take a Zumba class because they saw you working out. Like, that's amazing to me, So it's just that coming up that way kind of put me in that mold and that mindset to where when I'm training now, it's just like push through it. The only way to struggle is the only way to measure strength.
Yeah.
So you gotta push yourself through it, and you have to keep going. It's gonna burn, but there's a reward at the end. It's like anything else.
Yeah, man, and that's well said. I felt like I was listening to myself talking during some of that.
Listen, we got the same mindset.
When you went to college, you went to play. I mean, you obviously went to college to go to college, but you went to play football, also, right? Like,
yeah, we'll say I went to go to college, but yeah, no, So pretty much coming out of high school, I ended up going to a junior college, Nassau Community College, which at the time was considered like a football factory.
So they have a football team.
Oh, it was back then. It was a big deal junior college football program. I mean, we have guys that it was kind of like a Division I pit stop for a lot of guys. So we had guys that were kicked out of, top 25 schools in 1A football that would come there for a year to get their grades back up and return. We had guys that were supposed to go to those schools that would stop there. So it was a hotbed. We had guys that came out of there that went to the NFL. After there, they would go to a 4-year school and go to the NFL. So it was a really, really like historically strong football program at the time. It's a little different now. They made some changes, but for years and years, it was kind of legendary. So it was a big deal. We had a lot of Division 1A athletes in there. And
was there a consideration that did you ever consider like maybe I'll be a professional football player?
Well, that was it wasn't even a consideration, man. That was always the goal, coming up. I mean, it's like why play, Right. So that was always a goal. Like, yeah, I want to make it to the league. You just got to take the necessary steps. And my big thing coming out of high school, like, I was a pretty smart kid, but I didn't do the work necessarily like in the classroom, right? So my grades weren't the greatest. So I can remember, colleges, coaches and recruiters coming down from colleges and sitting in the office with my head coach in high school. And they're looking at game film and they're looking at my transcripts. They're like, all right, well, you're going to have to sit out a year. You're going to have to go to junior college for a year or, because your grades aren't great. I wasn't like failing everything, but you have to have a certain GPA. Mm-hmm. And sometimes C's aren't going to get you in. So that's kind of one of the things that I regret. But you know what? Nassau was an amazing experience. I made a lot of great friends. I've had teammates there that I've watched on TV, in the NFL, so it's a historically strong football program. So that was an amazing experience because when I got there, I never forget, they recruited. So when they recruited still like most other schools, and they had football housing and things like that. And my first impression when I got there the first day at camp is you still got to earn your spot on the team no matter what. And I was a defensive back in college. I was a DB. And I never forget, it was like 43 guys that showed up to camp for, I think they kept 13 defensive backs, 12 or 13. Wow. Oh, yeah. And you got to remember, there were sophomores returning from the year before, and there were at least like six guys coming back. Wow. So there's probably 6 or 7 slots left. So we're fighting it out, and I'm competing against guys who are all state, all city from the city of Long Island, and then they're all state in different states. So you're still getting the top of the top. So I ended up making the team, traveled every game. It's a freshman year, played on special teams. You guys play all over the country? Yeah, we traveled. We flew over the country, stayed in some nice hotels. So it was cool. You get the full experience because our head coach at the time, John Anselmo, he had coached Georgia Tech prior to that. After that, he went to Syracuse and coached. He was actually one of the coaches in the Buffalo Bills staff. Oh, wow. My defensive backs coach, Kenny Gales, he was in the NFL. It was a legit program. It wasn't like just, this is Nassau football. Like you couldn't just show up and play. So it was a great experience, man. Learned a lot.
So you started on that team?
Not until my sophomore year because it was a 2-year school. My freshman year, I played mostly on special teams. My sophomore year, I rotated in and out between so I played strong safety and I was a nickel and dime corner. So if I'm not familiar, if a team brings an extra defensive back on the field, that fifth defensive back, that's what I would do a lot. And then I played some at strong safety as well. The kid that was in front of me at strong safety was really gifted, but he would get penalties occasionally, personal fouls, and coach, get him out of there. So I played a lot, when I was at Nassau. So it was an amazing experience.
And then after Nassau's a 2-year program.
Yeah. So here's the kicker. Nassau's a 2-year program, and I had to do an additional semester, meaning like not just the spring, but the next fall I was going to have to do there. So I wasn't going to, either that or I would have to transfer out without the associate's degree. I was like, you know what, let me just get the associate's degree and I'll sit out that year and I'll transfer the next year. Man, that next fall I got a job working in the banking industry. And at that time, when you're 20 years old, you start seeing these paychecks like, oh, this is pretty good. And I never forget, my older brother was like, man, are you going to play football? I was like, yeah. I start working. 3 years go by. Like, wow. I'm not even thinking like, and I love football. But I don't know what happened. It's just that I figured I was going to take that year off, and then I just start working and making money.
Did you finish? You finished Nassau, though.
So I finished Nassau. I got my associate's degree, and then I decided I wanted to play football again. So I actually sent out the tape, the film that I had from what I played, between like Nassau, some high school film, everything I had, sent it out. And I got, accepted to come in by a couple different programs. And
so you were like 22 or 23?
I was 22. I was 22. And I sent film to...
Were you still in shape? Like still...
You know what? In between here, and I just missed a big point, in that 3 years working in the banking industry, I wasn't working out. I was eating horribly, and I gained like maybe 25 pounds just because, when you're playing college football, but all the training and the off-season workouts, yeah, you're training hard, and you're eating, pretty decently for the most part if you can. And I just, at that point when I'm working, I wasn't motivated so much to do those same things because that was usually always tied to football for me, right? So now when that was done, not that I didn't like going to the gym anymore, but after work, I was tired and you fall into a rut because you're eating poorly, you're not exercising, and it's a cycle. So 3 years, you gain around 25 pounds. It's like, whoa. So I decided I wanted to play football again, and I got myself back in shape. I lost the weight. and got myself back to where I was. I sent my film out and got invited a couple places. And I went to CW Post, LIU. I played spring ball over there, actually. Spring ball. Did pretty well. I was playing defense over there. And I decided I knew I wanted to play offense because I always figured, like, man, I should have just played running back. I was an all-county running back in high school, and I did well. I put up some really good numbers, and I still had a lot of tape from that, a lot of game film from that. So I sent that out just to see what would happen to a couple colleges. Got a couple hits. Got a full scholarship offer from a school in Virginia. So I went down there. And when I got down to Virginia, it was an amazing experience. I was there for a bit. And after that first semester there, something came up to the point where they wanted me to stay an extra year. They weren't going to accept all my credits. So it was a whole big deal because at this point, by the time I got down there, I ended up becoming like the starting running back on the team. Like that's the position that they had put me in between getting there. And academically, there was a lot of stuff that we can't take this credit, we can't take that credit. And I'm like, man, I just want to graduate, So I would have to do an entire another year. It's like, you know what? I made a decision, like I'm just going to leave the school. That's a decision that one of the few things in my life that I regretted for a long time because I had a golden opportunity, man, a golden opportunity. And it's not like I stopped playing because it wasn't going well. Like I was in the prime position, playing a lot, splitting. Me and another kid were the main running backs, and I don't know where my head was at that point as far as me making that decision. So that's one of the few regrets that I had for a long time. And not until a little bit later on, I was like, you know what? Everything happens the way it's supposed to sometimes, because it kind of led me to a path that I'm on now. And so I'm grateful for that. But that was kind of that journey, man.
So was that around when I met you, when you came back, you started working at
Equinox? Yeah. So I met you in 2012.
Yeah.
I came back in 2011. So, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I came back in 2011. I worked for an insurance company for a year, and I could not sit still. Like, I was still, working out, and I loved exercising. I loved working out, and one of my friends, a friend of mine, she asked me to go to the park with her to help her work out. So I went, and again, I wasn't a trainer at this time. I wasn't certified. I wasn't educated formally in it. So I just, I knew how to work out. I never trained anyone else. So I helped her. We did some stuff. She lost some weight. It was cool. She was happy. And I really enjoyed that. Like the smile on her face when she told me, oh, I lost 10 pounds. I lost this. These pants are too big on me now. Like, that was incredible for me. That was like a breakthrough. And I'm like, wow, maybe I should look into this thing. And I could just remember sitting at my desk. I could not stop thinking about the gym and fitness. And on my lunch breaks, I'm reading about like exercise and started getting more into exercise science. Because my brother, that was the bodyguard, he has a bachelor's degree in kinesiology, which is an exercise science degree. Yeah. So he told me, he's like, yeah, start studying. So I'm reading all these books and I'm studying, and I applied for my first certification, studied for that, passed the test, and June of 2012, man, is where it really, really all started to come together. I got hired at Equinox, thankfully. And then,
so that you basically Equinox is, at the time at least, it was like the elite gym.
Yeah.
And like Equinox was all over the city, and it was like the gym to belong to.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of other gyms, like like New York Sports Club and Synergy and all these stuff, which are not to rank gyms, but like
No,
Equinox
right,
is like the top of the food chain.
Top of the top.
How did you just start training at Equinox?
Man, honestly, man, divine intervention is the only thing I can think about.
Did you apply to other gyms, or you just said I'm just going to apply to
So I applied to a couple of gyms. So it's funny because like I applied to a couple places. I had no formal experience working in a gym at the time. You come in with that certification,
right?
Like that thing teaches you maybe 3% of what you need to know, right? Because
it's like a medical degree. Seriously.
Right.
You don't know shit about taking care of patients when you graduate med school.
They teach you foundational basics, I'm assuming, right?
Right.
Okay, there you go. Same thing. They teach you like and don't get me wrong, that's because you need to start with that. You need the foundational basics but I always encourage trainers, don't stop there. You do your continuing education, get more certification, even if you're not going to go get a bachelor's degree in exercise. Like, do continue in ed, because I walk in with this piece of paper and like, okay, this is great, but what's your experience? Well, what am I going to say? I trained someone in the park. You know what I mean? So it was kind of like, all right, so I'm applying to places that were a little bit lower, I guess you could say, on the food chain, and I'm not getting any hits. And I applied to Equinox because my brother told me about it. He's like, yeah, it's a great place to start. They have a good education system, because the thing about Equinox, they have an amazing continuing education system. They have a tier system. It's like tier 1, 2, 3, 3 plus. I think it's a 4. I think it's a tier X or something now. I mean, I left there over 5 years ago. But they have an amazing system, and we did hundreds and hundreds of hours of continuing education. We're doing case studies. We're taking midterms, finals. We're writing like little mini papers and like all of these cool things. Like we took anatomy 1 and 2, kinesiology, biomechanics, exercise phys. Our master instructor was an exercise science professor from Austria, Mike Majakas, you know. So it was really, really amazing, you know. So for me to get hired there, like right off the bat, was incredible to me, because they typically, for the most part, they're not going to hire you if you don't have that experience, right? So, and if they are hiring you with no experience, it's because you're coming in with a degree in exercise science or exercise physiology. It's not always the case, but typically. And that's what was explained to me at the time when I got hired. But they liked me during I think we had to do 3 interviews. And I was kind of blown away, you know, by that. And I loved it, man. And I just kept going from there.
Yeah, so you did, I guess you were there for, what, 2-3 years? Or?
I was there for about 2 years.
Okay, and then when you left there, did you go straight to Scooter's gym, or did you?
Yeah, so it's funny. I kind of started over at Scooter's place a little bit.
So for those who don't know,
explain,
Scooter is like the trainer.
Dave Scooter Honig. He's the trainer. He's the guru, man. He's one of the greatest to ever do it. He's been a mentor to me since 2013. Like he's famous for not only his work in the strength and conditioning field for fighters. He trains a lot of world champion fighters and boxers, you know, gets them in tip-top shape. But he's also the guy that, you know, transformed LL Cool J, you know, who did that. He helped LL Cool J transform, and so many other like A-list people that you would know. I mean, he's worked with like Leonardo DiCaprio. He's worked with Fantasia. He's worked with Tyler Perry. This is such a long list, man. You know, the guy is definitely a humble guy. Really took me under his wing. So pretty much how that happened was when I was at Equinox, I met a guy named Dr. Bill. Shout out to him, because he kind of helped all this come together. Dr. Bill Brownstein.
You see that dentist guy? That was
he's a root canal
like,
specialist. He's jacked. Yeah. And shout out to him, man. I can never thank him enough, because I remember when he was at Equinox, he was never even a client of mine. I was just always made it a point to build relationships and just talk to people, be friendly to people. You know, it doesn't cost you anything. And he was a cool guy. So I got to know him. We were cool. And I remember he had a shoulder issue for a while. So I kind of was like, hey, you should get your shoulder checked out. He didn't want to do it, but finally he got an MRI and got it checked out. He's like, all right, I'm going to have the surgery. And I was like, cool. So I remember when he came back from having the surgery, he's still in the gym committed. He's jacked. He's in a sling, working out with one arm. So we're talking, and I'm just like, yeah, well, do this. Make sure you don't use that shoulder, blah, 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 blah. So I showed him a couple things he could do. And we just kind of built like more of a friendship there. And one day he approached me. He said, hey, man, there's a guy there. They're moving their gym. It's a little bit bigger location. And they're possibly looking to bring in other trainers, so on and so forth. So at this time, I'm thinking in my head, like, yeah, but I'm at Equinox. I'm not leaving this, like, amazing opportunity, you know? So, but I was like, you know what? Pass my information along. So I finally connect. I called him up.
So when you said it's like Scooter, like, were you like, oh, wow.
So the name didn't click right away because he didn't give me a name. Okay. He just said his guy, and he gives me the name, and it's like, all right, cool. And it's Dave. So he tells me to call him. I never called. So he gives him my number, and for whatever reason, Scooter called me. Scooter's name is Dave Honig. Scooter called me and was like, yeah, I heard a lot of good things about you, blah, 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 blah. So I was like, yeah, I'll go check it out. So he's like, all right, well, you know, just look me up so you can know who I am, what I'm about. So, all right. So I Googled the guy, and I see a link to his website. So I click on it, and when his face pops up, I'm like, I know this dude. I've seen him somewhere before. And then you click on like clients, and I'm like, whoa, that's where I've seen him. You know, you got links to like when he's on Access Hollywood and all these different shows. And I'm like, this is where I've seen this guy. Like, this guy's the real deal. So I go and I meet with him, and we're talking, and really hit it off like right away, and I'm kind of just listening. At this point, I'm kind of like nervous, like, yo, this guy's like
a celebrity, basically.
Yeah, you know. And at this point, I had been in the industry for a year and a half, right? So I'm like, man, this guy is a celebrity. He's the man. So now we're talking. He's like, yeah, you know, maybe you can come over and start working and doing some stuff. So I told him what I'm about, what I was doing. So he had me doing some like functional movement screen and mobility stuff with some of his athletes. So that was kind of a shoo-in.
Did he teach you like, okay, I want you to do these 5 exercises?
No.
He's like, all right, just do some functional stuff with these.
He said, do what you do. Because what happened was that my first day there, he was training a kid. And my first day that I met him, he was training a kid. So he just asked me a couple questions to see where my head was. He's like, well, what would you fix on a squat? Or what would you do about this or that? Or do you know what this is for? So he realized that I did have a decent foundation now after being at Equinox for that year and a half at that point, or year and a half, whatever it was. And he's like, okay. He's like, so come on over, blah, blah, blah. And I need someone to do some functional, stretching and functional stuff. So I started out really as doing a lot of mobility for a lot of his athletes. And I just took that and ran with it. And then I started to train one of the athletes for him as I was still working at Equinox at this time. So I'm like totally violating my non-compete. So I'm training.
He's past the statute of limitations.
Yeah, I'm way beyond that. So now I'm training someone for him, a baseball player, this kid, and he really liked what I did with him, and he let me write the program, mind you, because he wanted to see where I was at, and then he gave me more and more people, and I'm training for him. So now him and the other owner of the gym, they came to me, Ed O'Boyle, great guy. They say, hey, if you want to come over and bring your clients and build your own business through here, you could just pay us rent, for each client that you train. You can do that. I'm like, okay. So they tell me this in the fall. So I kind of put together a little exit strategy. And by the spring, man, I was there and everything just started to come together.
This is like spring, 2015?
This is, 14.
14, okay.
14, yeah. So it was, like I said, it was just under 2 years. I was at Equinox, a little under. So really like a year and 8 months, so maybe a year and a half. And so it happened pretty quickly. So now at this point, I am transitioning, and I start to I had a couple clients that I had, and I started getting
you from Equinox.
Yeah. So the thing about that is I didn't want to take a ton of people from there, and they pretty much most of them all wanted to go. So I was like, look, I don't want to cause any issues, but technically they'll find you. Right. So I had a couple of clients, and then I just started getting referrals, and that was the name of the game for me. It was like, all right, my exit strategy is get my clients that I do have to refer me people who don't train here yet. They train here at all. And I got referrals, and I built the business that way. And just being there in that environment was around
it's a lot different than Equinox, though. It's a hardcore gym, man.
It's a different environment.
It's like, like a real, it's like a dirty gym.
You came there one day. It's gritty.
Yeah.
It's gritty. It's like everything's clean. They clean it all, but it's gritty.
I mean,
I know what you mean. It's that
not like
environment.
Equinox where it's like a spa. It's like this is like a gym.
This is a gym.
Yeah.
Like you're gonna, we're doing push-ups with chains on your back,
right,
and all kinds of things, it's incredible. It's competitive edge. It's incredible facility, and yeah. So at this point, just being there, even though I'm building my business, doing my own thing, I'm around Scooter, so I'm still training people for him, right? And I'm learning so much from this dude, just from like watching, and he's taught me so much. Like we'll sit down and talk about things and break stuff down.
So so specifically, like this is the right way to do this particular exercise, or
so
this is
never. The thing about it is funny because he'll never say, "Well, this is the right way you do something." His approach is more like, "This is the way I do it, and this is why." And you realize, like, okay, that's a better way for me to do it, because it gives you more of. He'll show you what's more effective, what's going to hit the muscle better, what's going to have a better outcome for whatever that result is that they're doing. So it wasn't like you're doing this exercise wrong. I had a pretty good foundation on that, but it was, well, try it this way,
this little tweak.
Try it with this time under tension. Right. Try the arm at this angle now, or do this external rotation here. Like it was more along the lines of that. It was more along the lines of tempos, and more along the lines of like just switching up the
reps,
the periodization, like the way you were loading and deloading. Like they get you saying the rep schemes and time sets, and because he's big on using like the percentages and tracking and programming and stuff, which is very important. So like just little things like that, learning some of his tricks of the trade, because I've seen him train a person that was getting ready for television, seeing him. So like what approach he took, I got to learn his nutritional principles. I got to learn like just so many different things and how different each client can really be. And again, you learn these things at Equinox and stuff like that.
Carb loading type stuff.
Yeah, these are the things
carb
carb cycling and carb loading. And I've watched them do weight cuts for fighters, which is a whole nother world, because a weight cut for a fighter is totally different for the average person. That's a whole nother thing. But, just learning these things and understanding, how to approach things. And one thing I learned from him is how to coach. Because this guy is one of the greatest coaches ever as far as mindset and tapping into a person's mind, whether it's a fighter, whether it's the mom who just dropped her kids off at school, whether it's the businessman, whether it's somebody getting ready to shoot X-Men. Like, it really doesn't, his coaching ability to break through to a person was always amazing to me. And I learned and picked up some of that stuff. And that's really what helped me change the most.
It's like just watching a master, man.
It was literally a paid internship. Like that's how I look at it. I got to, like, Equinox was a great foundation, right? Equinox was college. That was like med school. Right. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes all sense.
Yeah. Cause like, and again, this guy, he's a humble dude. Big ups to Scooter and Ed O'Boyle, over there at CA. Ed's amazing, a beast himself, and great trainer, great coach. Like, just learning and being in that environment for me was so vital and so important that transition happened at the right time. Like, opening a studio right after Equinox wouldn't have been the right move, right? Spending that time there, that 4.5 years that I spent, because I transitioned over there by that spring full time, that 4.5 years changed my life completely, man, just from being in that environment. That's why I challenge people, get around people who, you don't have to use the term, are better than you, but are smarter than you or know more that you can learn from. You can learn from each other, because it goes such a long way.
Hey, man, like they say, you never want to be the smartest person in the room, right?
That's what they say. You're in the wrong room.
I have a funny Scooter story. I have the Mudgil Fitness Lab at my home, and I have a pretty sophisticated facility in there, for home gym at least.
No, but for any gym.
I had a leak in my in my gym, and Justin was coming over to train me there, and I was like, dude, I got a leak in my gym. Like, can we go over to Scooter's? And he's like, yeah, we'll go over to Scooter's. So we go over to Scooter's gym, and I usually train fasted because I intermittent fast, and I didn't have my BCAA with me. So Justin's like, no, don't worry, man. Don't worry. We're going to talk to Scooter. He's an expert, man. He's got everything. And he's like, hey, Scooter, the doc doesn't have his BCAA. You got something that you could get for him? He's like, yeah. He grabs this like powder from the back, and I just had I didn't even have water. So he's like, get a bottle of water. So I got like one of those small Poland Spring bottles of water. And he's like, put some of this in there. So I put the powder in there, and I shake it up. And I drink, I take a couple of sips of it. And all of a sudden, my heart is racing 500 beats. I'm whoa, totally tweaked. Yeah, that was amazing, man.
Every supplement under the sun. Yeah. That's one thing. Another thing about Scooter, man. He knows about, and he has so many different versions of it. Like, well, what do you need, or what are you training today? I mean, it's so crazy. So I kind of knew that's where you were headed. Cause man,
that was funny, man.
That gave you were ready to work out after that.
Yeah, I was ready to work out for the next 10 days. I was ready to go. So let's transition into where you are now, man. I mean, so now, after all that, you worked at Equinox, you worked with Scooter, you had your sort of paid internship, like you said. And I can tell, how much you've learned. I mean, you're basically the smartest trainer right now.
Wow,
you do so much stuff, and
appreciate that.
We talk about nutrition and just just all the variations that we do. It's always a very different workout when I work out with you, and I always really look forward to it because I know I'll be in pain the next day, but I also know that I'm gonna grow.
Good pain, soreness.
Yes, so that's the best kind of pain.
Yeah.
So this past year, you're sort of realized your goal. You opened this really impressive studio in Greenvale called the J Fit Studio, and just tell us a little bit about that, and how people can hook up with you, man.
Yeah, man, I appreciate that. Yeah, no, I actually realized that I knew I wanted to do it for maybe the past 2 years, but had to kind of be patient and put the plan together and kind of really build towards that. But I opened up JFit Training Studio, and the grand opening was back in October of 2018, so a few months old. It is in Glen Head, New York, 333 Glen Head Road, Suite 10. Just a little plug. Glen Head, New York, and it's been incredible. It's been incredible. Pretty much there, it's a functional training boutique style studio. So the studio itself is about 900 square feet. We have about roughly 800 square feet of training floor space. We had them do a complete build out. They put a shower in for me, a nice bathroom, and it's a nice space. Some turf, as the doc knows. That's from the sled pushes we got.
Absolutely.
Got going
you
in
can
there.
catch those on my Instagram page.
Check out his Instagram. You'll see him. And doing some functional training, and over there I'm still doing my one-on-one privates, but I've segued into semi-private personal training a lot more, and that's been incredible because the cool thing about semi-private training is, we can I'll train up to 3 people at a time, but it's so different than traditional small group training because it is semi-private personal training, and the big difference is everyone's on their own individual program. And that was super important to me. It's pretty much a personal training session in the environment of, having up to 2 other people there in the session. Works really well. Clients that I have in the program so far love it. I'm getting more and more people in it. It seems each week. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm doing there, and just looking towards building, towards the future and growing it, man. Looking to bring on another coach later this year. To get more done, be more efficient with a few things. So that's the story, man. Just working on building that and growing it out.
Well, it's an awesome space. I've had the pleasure of training there many times, and just to see, really kind of a big part of your fitness journey. Like I said, it's been a real pleasure, man. It's awesome to see how much you've grown, and just I know the future is like limitless for you.
I appreciate that, man.
Just final plug though. I really implore you guys. You gotta really check out Justin's Instagram page. It's literally mind blowing. You will not be able to get off of it. Just when you're scrolling through all these videos, it's Mr._Jayfit. That's MR_JAYFIT. Check it out. Justin, man, I can't thank you enough for coming down here for the podcast. Man, it's been a real pleasure.
Honor to be here. Like you asked me, I was so humbled, man. Still kind of in shock right now, but I'm thankful, man. Like I really, really appreciate you inviting me down because this has been great. It's been awesome.
And I appreciate you too, man. All right. Thank you for watching the Dr. Mudgil podcast. You can find the corresponding audio to this podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and SoundCloud. Let's get it.